What up, my fellow dorks? It is the Turtle Dork back again. Season 8, Episode 5. We don't have the title because, of course, spoilers. They want to keep it secretive.
The title is called Danny Got to Go.
Danny's got to go. Okay, I'm the Turtle Dork. This is the Disco Dork. Let's get into this shit. I'm still kind of reeling over this. As you guys know, we do these reviews immediately watching. The credits are probably still rolling. So these reactions are fresh. They are extremely fresh. So let's not talk about the end of the episode.
You still got tears in your eyes.
Let's not talk about the end of the episode. Let's go back to the beginning. If we can remember the beginning.
I was gonna say I don't even remember. Shit got crazy.
Varys.
Varys. Nah, damn.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning of the episode. So episode 5. You guys know this is the penultimate episode, and Game of Thrones is very well known for a lot of shit going down to the second to last episode of the season. This is the second to last episode of the series, so we knew some ill shit was going to happen. So we start off with Varys writing a letter about the true heir to the throne. Writing a letter. We don't know who he's writing that letter to, but we know that he's writing a letter. And let's just get into just Varys and what ultimately ends up happening to him, which I kind of predicted was going to end up happening to him after last week when we saw the conversation that he had with Tyrion.
Yeah.
You know, about, is Dany fit to rule?
Yeah. And
knowing where he stands and that he is ultimately going to try to protect the realm or to serve the realm, that once this information got out or got back to Dany, what that could cost him, which was his life. So what was your takeaway as far as that opening and also Tyrion basically giving him up and knowing the history between Varys and Tyrion that they have shared throughout the whole series, dating back to what, season 2, maybe even season 1?
Yeah.
And just even towards the end where he says, goodbye, old friend. Like, oh man, that was a punch to the gut. But your thoughts on Varys and that whole beginning?
Well, I think what Varys was doing was he was writing a letter, basically sending multiple notes just to every different points in the land,
okay.
different houses and things like that, just alerting them of the truth. Because if that information gets out, just like Dany feared, just like Varys knew, also Tyrion and Jon, that it's going to cause the different houses to rally behind Jon as opposed to Dany. That's why she didn't want, because she said it, everyone loves you. No one loves me.
Exactly, yeah.
So she already knew she was at a disadvantage. So if Varys puts this information out, then it would solidify their allegiance to him as far as being, rightful heir. So if he does take the throne, they'll already be lined up to follow him.
Exactly.
So I think that's what Varys was doing. He was using his last days, and he knew his time was running short. And I think he was just using the remaining time to get the information out to as many people as possible.
Yeah.
So that even after he's gone, that information could still benefit Jon, even though Jon doesn't want the throne. And then the actual execution of it, I thought that scene was handled well, even though I did not like that. But it was because, and we talked about it in a bunch of recap episodes, about just how well the show has handled the relationship between Varys and Tyrion.
Yeah.
From where it started to how it would grow to ultimately where it ended. And even though one could be angry or upset or disappointed in Tyrion for basically throwing Varys under the bus, I feel like if you look at their relationship, just from a dramatic standpoint, just that arc, it makes for good drama. It's fitting, right? It's bittersweet, right?
Yeah.
And ultimately, what makes it bittersweet and more palatable for me is that, Varys understands. He understands that Tyrion wasn't doing it out of malice or any type of, he's not playing the game in the way that other people would play the game. He's doing it because of, the same reason why Varys took his stance. He believed in
exactly
what he believed in, and he understood that Tyrion at least took a righteous standpoint on his beliefs, but unfortunately they were on opposite sides. So it wasn't like he had any type of animosity or he faulted Tyrion for that.
No. He didn't blame him for any of that. And that's what I love. That's what I love about the relationship between Tyrion and Varys throughout this whole series, is the fact that they may have different ideologies or different ideas as far as how they go about doing certain things, they've always had that mutual respect for each other.
Yeah.
Even when they were on opposing sides of maybe a certain type of situation, and I think they both understood that. That's why I love that moment where he says, goodbye, old friend or dear friend. I'm paraphrasing, but and I think that hurt Tyrion to the point where, because we know Tyrion is conflicted, and we knew where Varys stood in that moment as far as like if Dany was the right ruler. So in the moment when Varys is about to be executed, now Tyrion is thinking to himself, well, and Varys even mentions it. He was like, look, I hope that I am wrong. It's like I hope that I am, but it looks like by the end of this episode he was right.
Yeah.
And now Tyrion has to reconcile with that.
He has to reconcile with that. He has to reconcile with the fallout of Dany's actions, like later on in this episode.
Yeah.
So shit's going to be pretty heavy for him in this last episode, as far as what he's got to deal with, because he's got to face her, her truths. He's got to face his own truth and the reality of the situation, and then the reality that he was wrong. He's been fucking. And Tyrion's my favorite dude, but he's been making a lot of mistakes, and
I think he's been making decisions based on, I don't want to say his emotions, but just because of like, let's get to the scene with him and Jaime, because I think a lot of the reasons he's making a lot of these decisions are based on emotions and the love that he has for his own family, who Dany is going up against. Cersei is literally Dany's trying to overthrow Cersei, who is his sister, for the throne. Yeah. So that scene now we know that Dany mentions that they have captured Jaime because he left Winterfell to go back down to King's Landing. Yeah. So they intercepted him and captured him, and they have him captive. So he goes to see him. That whole scene between him and Jaime, I thought, plays into a lot of stuff that we've seen between the two of them before. And also just him reciprocating that whole thing when Tyrion, I think back in season 4, after the whole thing, the trial by combat, when Oberyn got killed. Yeah.
That was in season 4?
Yeah, and then Jaime ended up letting him go when he also ultimately killed Tywin. This is almost like the reverse of that, where now he's letting Jaime go. But that moment that they had right before he let him go, where he says, "You never treated me like a monster."
That was a great moment.
And it goes back to what I told you before, like Jaime. Well, now we know, but at the end of this episode, that he had love for Cersei and Tyrion. But that love that Jaime had for his brother and how it was reciprocated from Tyrion, I just love that relationship between the two of them. But ultimately, that choice that Tyrion made by letting Jaime go, we thought could ultimately be detrimental to him. We still don't know how that's going to play out. Yeah. But what did you think about that whole scene between him and Jaime?
My biggest takeaway was the surprise that Tyrion was like, "Look, I'm going to free you. Go try to talk some sense into Cersei." Yeah. Then you take her ass down those steps, go out to the beach. There'll be a little boat waiting for you too. Yeah. Go sail and get away and live and start over and start a new life. Like, I was surprised that Tyrion would say, take Cersei with you and let her live too. Yeah. Which again, it just go, and some people might have choice with feelings about that, but I just feel like that just deepens Tyrion as a character, because in spite of her repeated attempts to kill that motherfucker,
I know,
her unabashed disdain for him, her constantly blaming him for the death of their mother. Just like Tyrion said, Jaime was the only one that didn't treat him like a monster, whereas Cersei and their father did. In spite of all of that, Tyrion is of such character that he would say, Jaime, I not only want you to go start over and be safe, but take our sister as well.
Exactly, because he knows that she's pregnant, and that's ultimately, I think, what's also kind of shifted Tyrion in a lot of his decision making.
But now saying that out loud, but I also think it really just goes back to how much Tyrion loves Jaime, because Tyrion knows that no matter what happens, Jaime's not going to be 100% happy unless his sister's there. And at the end of the day, Tyrion wants for Jaime's happiness. So I think that probably played a large part into, all right, well, take your sister as well, because you're not going to be happy without her. You're not going to go anywhere without her. Everything always comes back to her. You're returning back to her. So if this is what it takes for you to still be alive and live safely somewhere, then go take her with you and just get out of here.
Yeah. And I guess Cersei really was pregnant.
So
if not, she was really convincing in those last moments.
Up until the end, up until the very end.
But I think she was, because I was under the impression that maybe she wasn't, and she was using the pregnancy.
And I think a lot of people were. I mean, I was as well. But no one could be blamed because you can't trust her.
No, you can't. So the next morning we see. So I'm assuming that their camp was like right outside King's Landing, because the next morning we see the Hound and Arya. They're already in King's Landing. They're trying to get to the gate to get on the other side of the Red Keep, and Jaime's there too. So this is the beginning of when shit starts to hit the fan, literally. So where do we want to start with this? So I mean, the thing I picked up on this was like, okay, so we have the Unsullied, the Dothraki, which I don't know where all those Dothraki came from, because I could have sworn most of them got obliterated in the Battle of Winterfell. But anyway, but the thing is, it's like Tyrion was saying, like, look, give her a chance to ring the bell if they lay down their swords, if they surrender. And because Tyrion, even in this moment, is trying to prevent bloodshed. Yeah. And I don't know. So we start in the Blackwater Sea with the fleet.
Oh yeah.
So that's kind of when everything kind of starts. But we have the Unsullied and the army right outside the gates. But then on the backside of King's Landing at the Blackwater Sea, we have Euron and his Iron Fleet out there with the Scorpions.
So Dany makes a preemptive a strike on the fleet to take the sea power, the naval power away from the battle. Which she does, smart. Which is smart, and she does it in quick succession in pretty short order. Which I was remarking, like, why didn't she just do that shit the last time?
I told you, man, it was too dark. Oh, you're talking about when Rhaegal died?
Yeah,
it was a surprise attack. It was a sneak attack.
Okay, well, she snuck back and she took out. She made short work of the fleet, which was cool. But from my understanding, Tyrion's whole reasoning for letting Jaime go was, all right, I'm gonna let you go. Talk some sense into Cersei and see if you can get her to surrender, and then ring the bells. That'll be our signal, and we'll stand down, right? So even though Jaime didn't make it in time to talk to Cersei to have the bells rung, there was a mini attack. There was a push forward because Dany, after she took that fleet out, she came from behind. Push through.
Yeah, with the fire through to basically blow out
the
that
golden
gate.
The Golden Company. I keep calling them the Golden Compass and the Golden Army. But anyway, that sets off that particular leg of the skirmish, right? So so the Unsullied and the remaining Dothraki, they push forward.
Your boy, Strickland, douchebag dude.
Dude, his face. Am I the only one? Does he not have like a douchebag face to you? Does. Like, and I'm sorry for prejudging that dude. He's probably like a nice Golden Company dude, but he just looked like a douchebag.
He got one.
Anyway, he's killed by Grey Worm. So anyway, they have a small skirmish like on the outskirts of the inner walls. That's funny.
And Grey Worm gets his man.
Yeah, he goes John Wick on him with the spear. But then like the bells are rung. Right, and Cersei's seeing this, but
they lay down their swords because there's a standoff. So they get through, and then they run into the Lannister army.
Right,
and so there's a little standoff, and then they lay down their swords, and so they're waiting.
And then there's this tense period of because Tyrion is waiting to see if the bells are going to be rung, and Dany is perched up.
Yeah, she's perched up on like one of the
building, and I was confused. So at this point, I'm like, all right, Dany's waiting to see if the bells are going to be rung. Because she told Tyrion, well, she at least gave him, she didn't really give him her word, but she entertained the idea that, all right, I hear you pleading to give them an opportunity to lay down their sword so we can do this with as least amount of bloodshed as possible and have them ring the bells. And that happens. So from Dany's vantage point, my understanding is she understands that they've taken the sea, power away from Cersei. She's destroyed the naval fleet. They've already breached the outer wall, so they've taken care of the Golden Company.
Yeah.
And they've gotten the Lannister army to lay down their swords. So the show, we then focused on Dany, and she's looking at the Red Keep.
Yeah.
And she seems to be getting more and more upset. And then she flies off towards the city and the Red Keep, and then she starts setting fire to everything. And at this point, like, I was really fucking confused.
I think this is something that's going to be a point of conversation moving forward this week. As far as what a lot of people are going to be talking about on social media, on a lot of these recap reviews, people are going to be talking about, was this switch in Dany warranted? Is this something that they have successfully led up to story-wise? Has this been building to this, or did it just kind of come out of nowhere? I think they have been trying to build towards this turn. Have they done it successfully for this particular moment to be warranted? I don't personally, at this point, I don't think so. It doesn't, to me, it doesn't make sense why she would do that.
So I'm thinking, okay, maybe she is still angry at Cersei for the beheading of Missandei, right?
Yeah.
But what Tyrion said, okay, if we get them to lay down their swords, then the rest of the people will cease to support her, and then we have their support, and then we can take her, right?
Yeah.
So that happens. Dany has to know that they have King's Landing at this point. So if you want to exact revenge on Cersei for Missandei and everything else, and also just to get her ass out of the way so you can get the throne, then just go have the Unsullied go in there, bring her ass out, put her up in chains in front of all the people, behead her or whatever.
It's like, you have a dragon, just fly to the Red Keep and just burn.
Which ultimately she ends up doing after like killing a bunch of innocent people, which again, I didn't understand.
No sense. I mean, if we look at Dany, if we look at season 3 Dany, where she was like the breaker of chains, like this person that's freeing these slaves from Yunkai and Meereen and these different places, to the Dany that we have now. Okay, I see where they were trying to go, but it just doesn't make sense. And I think even Tyrion or someone even mentions that, like, when they were in the throne room in Dragonstone, because Tyrion is trying to tell her, it's like, look, you have to show mercy. Yeah. It's like, you showed mercy, like when you took over Meereen, and you saved these slaves. It's like, you have to show mercy to these innocent people, and I can't remember exactly what she said. I have to go back and rewatch that scene. But I don't know. It's just, I just don't like how we've gotten to this point with Dany. I knew this point was coming, but I just don't necessarily like the execution of how they actually did it in this particular episode.
Yeah.
Now, going back when I edit these videos and the reactions, and I go back and rewatch a lot of it, my opinion may change, or I may be able to kind of reconcile my own opinions about it. But as of right now, it just seems like it just kind of came out of nowhere. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's get deep into this battle. So now we're inside of King's Landing. We get some stuff from the ground level with Arya and the Hound. So we're in the area where King's Landing, where they have the big map of Westeros and I think Essos and everything on the ground, where we've seen a lot of scenes before, and the Hound tries to turn Arya away and basically telling her, like, look, we've come far enough. I can't remember exactly what he said, but he understands that she wants revenge, and he's like, look, basically, if you keep on this path of revenge, you're going to end up like me. No one knows about revenge more than I do. I've spent my whole life trying to get revenge, right? And he says, do you want to end up like me? And so ultimately, through that conversation, he says a little bit more, but through that conversation, he kind of opens Arya's eyes and says, look, if you come with me, if you come any further and go with me, we're going to die here. You're going to die here. And he doesn't want that for her. And I think ultimately he knows that she doesn't want that for herself. And so he kind of gives her a moment of clarity and opens her eyes, and she thanks him for it. Exactly, yeah. And because I guess she realizes that it was something that was all-consuming to her, and she kind of saw herself
being lost in that, and could see her going down a path similar to the Hound, and being that she spent so much time with him, I think that lent itself to, you know, that comparison. So when he says, "Do you want to end up like me?" Having spent time with him, knowing the type of person that he had become, I think she was able to see, like, well, at the end of the day, no, I don't want to be that. And so, you know, they had a really, I felt like that was a really profound and moving moment. I'm satisfied with that being that their final moments together, even though I could, you know, I would, at the fan in me, could do it a myriad of different ways, but what we got in that moment, I am satisfied. It was bittersweet,
and I think in hindsight, looking at how that whole sequence played out with Arya moving forward after she does part ways with the Hound, like seeing her, you know, trying to save people, and we'll get to that whole thing with Arya, which has some cool one shots. They actually did that a couple times.
Yeah,
but let's get to the Clegane Bowl. Clegane Bowl.
Say it like that.
In this corner, we have Sandor Clegane. In this corner, we have Gregor Clegane. I don't know. I just wanted to say that.
That was great.
It was good. But, man, we've been talking about this. Fans have been talking about this for years.
Let me ask you this. This is cut right to it. Did it live up to your expectations?
Yeah. I think it did. I think because they've been building up to this moment for so long, I think they knew that they had to deliver. We knew the mask was going to come off. Mask off. But yeah, we knew the mask was going to come off, and I think it gave it, because that was the thing that always bothered me about the Mountain, is the fact that once Qyburn turned him into like zombified Mountain, if like we would actually see like that intensity between the two of them, if we can actually feel like the connection that the Mountain and the Hound has, or was he just going to be like this soulless zombie? And I think once the mask came off and the helmet came off, we got to see that.
He looked like a giant dead baby.
He did. He did. But but we got to see like the emotionality and a lot of the just a lot of the acting and a lot of the stuff that I wanted to see between the two of them.
Yeah.
And I think it lived up. I think it really did live up. And I don't know, the way it ended. I mean, I know you were saying, you were jokingly kind of saying some stuff.
I wasn't joking. That shit was real. I meant that.
I was being in the moment because it was symbolic. It's symbolic of the fact that, you know, when he takes the Mountain over the cliff and they fall into the fire, having them fall into the fire is symbolic to ultimately what the Mountain, symbolic to the Hound and his fear of fire, and it just felt symbolic in the only way, very poetic, that was the way he needed to go out, is to take him brother out in the fire. And I don't know, I thought it was cool. Yeah, it was really cool.
I call bullshit. He could have just pushed that motherfucker through the wall.
But he needed more momentum, so he had to like wrap him, and then he did.
He could have just threw his shoulder into him.
Nah, that was like a big wall. He had to, like that don't push nobody, especially the Mountain. Come on, man. The Mountain is like, that dude's gotta be.
You just want the Hound to die.
No, I didn't, man. I really didn't. But what you think of the Clegane Bowl?
You gonna say it like that every time?
I might.
What is it called?
Clegane Bowl.
Well, my thoughts on the
Clegane Bowl
are that I felt like it lived up to my expectations. Actually, to be honest, I was just looking forward to seeing it happen. I hadn't pictured in my mind what it would be like.
I mentioned he had the Mountain had the high ground like Obi-Wan.
I told you he is the high ground because he's so goddamn tall. But I felt like part of me was thinking like the Hound was maybe going to live and that maybe Arya was going to save him. But I do appreciate now in hindsight the fact that they kept it contained to just them two, so they could have their confrontation and their closure. Even though as a fan, I would rather have, my complaints about it is just because I just wanted the Hound to live. Like, I thought when he was sticking his thumb in his eyes, I was like, oh, he's going to blind him. He's going to kill the Mountain, but then the Hound's just going to be blind, and so he and Arya are going to be together, and Arya's just gonna like lead him around from now, like just be his eyes for him. Nope, because he decided to dive through a fucking wall. But I thought the sequence was handled well. It was appropriately shot in such like the way that it was shot on the stairs with the wall out and the dragon flying around, so it made it like really epic.
And the lighting, they did this close up on Gregor Clegane, and like the lighting and the way. Oh man,
yeah. So I felt like it was framed appropriately epic.
Oh man, and then like Qyburn.
Oh, that motherfucker! I had just commented like, how is this fragile motherfucker still alive? Yeah, the mountain took care of that. That shit was great. And
the thing that blew me about that was like Qyburn is the one that created the mountain in that form.
Well, that's Frankenstein's monster. That's what happens though. Like that's that particular trope. Like you create the monster that you can't control and end up succumbing to that. But my favorite part about all that, when Cersei saw that, she was like, all right, excuse me, let me get by real quick. Y'all do your thing. I'm out of here.
I'm gone. I guess a couple more points, 2 more points I really want to make about this battle, because we covered, I think, the majority of it. Well, no, we got a couple more. Let's talk about Cersei. Let's talk about Cersei and Jaime.
Are you going to skip past Euron?
Well, I guess we could lead into that. So Jaime is coming up to try to get to Cersei, and so Euron, who got blown into the water from the dragon,
that lucky motherfucker.
Oh God, I can't stand that dude. So I guess he comes up on shore and runs into Jaime as he's trying to get into the Red Keep. And they have a little skirmish, a little fight, and I guess he gives some fatal wounds to Jaime.
Yeah.
And then Jaime ends up taking him out finally.
Were you happy?
I was, man, because I do not like... The thing about the show is like, okay, so when Euron shows up on the bridge when he kills Balon Greyjoy, his brother, I think that happens at the end of season 6. They're really just trying to set Euron up as the big baddie, almost in the way of like Joffrey and Ramsay. And he doesn't compare to Joffrey or Ramsay. And he's just too cartoonish. He's way too cartoonish as a character. And I just could not buy into like his insanity, into his I don't know. And I mean, he was a fun character in the beginning, but then as he started to kind of have more agency in the show and get more to do, I was just like, okay, it's getting to be a bit much.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm glad he was taken out, but I didn't like his. I mean, I get what you were saying, his final lines, as far as like, I'm the man that killed Jaime Lannister because of the fatal wounds that he gave. But ultimately, he really wasn't the one. Once we see what ultimately happened.
Ultimately, Dany was the one who killed the Kingslayer.
Basically, and many more people. But yeah, before we get to Jaime and Cersei, what did you think about Euron? Or what are your whole thoughts on Euron Greyjoy?
He was either or with me. Like I mean, he wasn't a favorite character of mine. I'm glad Jaime was the one that killed him. Although I think like I don't see why he even lived through that. Through the assault on the ships, I felt like the show wrote his survival. Like he survived because the show wanted a confrontation between he and Jaime. But technically, his ass should have died on one of those boats that Dany laid waste to. But so Jaime ultimately reunites with Cersei in a very surprisingly touching moment. Like I don't know, like at this point, like you had remarked before Cersei had descended into the bottom of the Red Keep, that you were starting to feel bad for her and you were starting to sympathize with her.
A little bit.
And I was like, for what? Like,
I know. Lena Headey is such a good actress.
She is, but I'm like the fact that she had, a lot of those innocent people that are being barbecued that's on Cersei as well for inviting her in and trapping those people in there.
And it's funny because once I said that, we get a shot of the wildfire starting to explode. So she was going to kill them people regardless.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So.
And so that being said, I was surprised at how sympathetic, or at the very least, moved emotionally by the reunion between her and Jaime.
Yeah.
They descend down further because Tyrion says, okay, once you get her, go all the way down to the bottom where the dragon skulls were. There's going to be an exit there. There'll be a boat waiting for you. and they go down there, but because of the level of destruction to the Red Keep, they're sealed in basically. And so she has her final moment with Jamie, and she says, you know, I want my baby to live. I don't want to die. And you know, Jamie repeats something that was mentioned earlier in the series, where he says, you know, it's just you and me. Like nothing else matters. And so, like you had said, you know, whether it be Jamie killing Cersei or Cersei killing Jamie, I think it was ultimately going to come back to them being together, and they were going to die together, and which is what we got.
I definitely thought that it was destined that the two of them. I mean, I really thought it was going to come down to Jamie having to make a choice to whether she was going to kill Cersei, to choose between Cersei and Tyrion.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I knew that they were going to either kill each other or die together, and it was just destined. And I don't know, because of last episode, and it kind of retroactively makes me, it makes me have a little bit of issues with the whole thing between him and Brienne. Because now I kind of, you know, especially with the way this scene played out between Cersei and Jamie, and you see that how much they really do still love each other. It just, I don't know. I just really wish that they didn't really try to go down that route between.
The physical intimacy.
The physical intimacy between Brienne and Jamie. I just felt like there was no reason or cause to go there.
And just to break Brienne's heart. I said it when that shit happened. I was like, man, that's just heartache for her. I did not want that to happen.
Yeah.
So we end with Arya, which I think is pretty important.
Yeah.
Going into the final episode.
Yeah, that last scene. First, it was beautifully shot. God, it was such a gorgeous, like that one shot.
Her approaching the horse,
and then like before that one shot with her standing like symmetrically, like in the like the alleyway, and the way the light hits, and you see like the glare. And the slow motion with the ashes coming down, and then she's looking around, and then she sees the white horse there and approaches it. Like that whole scene, and like you say, symbolically, again, the show doesn't lie to us. There's a reason why we end on Arya riding off, riding off down with everything aflames. So, like you say, Melisandre said she was destined to kill someone with shut eyes, brown eyes, blue eyes, and green eyes. And, you know, we've seen the camera linger on Dany with those teal eyes. Teal is green, right?
It has green in it.
So, one episode left, man. One episode left.
So, with this decision that Dany made, you know, going past the point of no return and killing all those innocent people.
Yeah.
She's got to go. Like I don't see her living like at the end of this series, right? And I don't see Jon having the ability to kill her. So with that prophecy that you just mentioned, and with what happened and how a lot of the latter portion of this episode was focused on Arya and the destruction and her witnessing and being witness to, you know, being hurt by, you know, potentially losing her life multiple times, but also that particular woman and child, and seeing what Dany caused as far as like all those innocent people, but specifically that woman and child. Now I feel like on top of her vested interest because of Dany's relationship with Jon and her allegiance to Sansa, but also being on ground zero with and seeing the repercussions of Dany's actions, I feel like now Arya definitely has a reason to want to go after her and have Dany be the fulfillment of that prophecy as far as closing the green eyes.
Yeah, I guess the last point I'll make is that this episode, I mean, once shit started to hit the fan at King's Landing, Jon Snow, I mean, it's really setting up the confrontation, the conflict between Jon and Dany for this final episode next week. Jon didn't really have much to do, so I mean, a lot of the stuff that really focused on was Arya, kind of moving forward, but Jon just kind of had this kind of bewildered look on his face, and he was just like,
because he knew he fucked up.
He's like, what the fuck is going on? It's like, Dany, what are you doing? And then like we don't get much else from him, but we know that that's all going to play out next week. And One to go.
Yeah.
And then there was one. One episode left. I'm
You're gonna cry right now?
No, I'm gonna cry. So who do we lose? Varys, the Hound.
Yeah. Jamie, Cersei.
Euron, the Mountain.
Yep.
And I think that's about it. So it's about 6 people, and some of those
main cast.
Qyburn, 7. Damn.
That's probably one of the largest kill count from like cast wise, and outside of like extras or like, you know, whatever. That's probably like the largest that we've had.
Yeah. I don't know. Seriously, Jamie. I wish we could have. I mean, I guess that was fitting just to see them die. You know, get crumbled. So I guess, yeah. All right, I'm satisfied. Anyway, let us know what you thought of episode 5 of the final season, season 8 of Game of Thrones. Make sure you check out our other dorks at MouthDork, at WB Dash, at Sidewalk Siren. Remember to comment. And as always, I am the Turtle Dork. This guy here is the Disco Dork. And with that, we will see you next week for one more episode. The final one. We're out.